U.S. Cavalry Association honors the men and horses who serve their countries and their states. April 1861. Fort Sumter is bombarded and surrenders to South Carolina troops. President Lincoln calls for 75,000 volunteers to enlist for 3 months of service, but no cavalry. After all, the war would be short. Cavalry was expensive to equip and train. A tiny force of regular cavalry is shipped in from the west and scattered among the infantry commands as escorts, scouts, and couriers. As more states secede from the Union, the Confederacy rapidly mobilizes large forces of cavalry. From Virginia and North Carolina to hunters and thoroughbreds. From Kentucky and Tennessee, fine saddle horses. From Texas, tough Mustangs, quarter horses. Having grown up on horseback, the Confederate riders from the sons of wealthy Virginia planters to Texas Rangers were skilled as their horses were fast and beautiful. For the next 2 years, they were lines around the horsemen. They were the eyes and ears of the Army, and they specialized in fast hit-and-run tactics that struck terror into their adversaries. After the Union defeat at First Manassas, it was obvious that this was not going to be a short war. Finally, the northern states began to recruit and train regiments of volunteer cavalry, but they had huge obstacles to overcome. The North was a nation of drivers, not riders, and only 1 in 4 Yankee cavalry recruits knew how to ride a horse. Some states supplied horses to their troops. The first Vermont was mounted on Morgans, and the first Massachusetts on tough Canadian horses. The government supplied its troops with geldings, 5 to 9 years old, 15 to 16 hands, sturdy and sound of wind. But the reality was, few men answering to the general specifications of a horse qualified. Many were greenbroke or had never been ridden at all. Many regiments had only weeks to get used to their new horses before being pitchforked into the field. Though some regiments were blessed with good drill instructors, both of these fledgling horsemen learned through the school of hard knocks. Oops. Although most Yankees were new to horses and many started out fearing their own horses more than the enemy, it didn't take long for a bond of trust to develop. In the horse, the trooper had a friend who knew every move. One Vermont cavalryman wrote, he had the best little horse in the Army, and how he covered his horse with his own blanket and tent that he would walk. The Pennsylvania drover boasted that his horse was as tame as a dog and afraid of nothing. They shared hunger, thirst, and fatigue. During one march where the 10th New York Cavalry covered 600 miles in 10 days, exhausted troopers slept in the saddle or lay down in the mud with the reins looped over one arm without fear of their horses stepping on them. June 9, 1863. Confederate cavalry under Jeb Stuart clashed with the Federal forces of Alfred Pleasanton in an all-day at Brandy Station, Virginia. Some 18,000 troopers, approximately 9,000 on either side took part, making this the largest cavalry battle on American soil. In the end, Stuart commands the field. But the Yankees hold their own, signaling the rise and future domination of Union cavalry. In July, the Battle of Gettysburg is fought in Pennsylvania. Here the Union cavalry Cavalry under John Buford shows its worth by getting to the high ground first and holding off the Confederate infantry with their modern breech-loading carbines until reinforcements could arrive. In the spring of 1864, Ulysses S. Grant, newly commissioned to the rank of Lieutenant General, is given official authority to command all the armies of the United States. Battles at Spotsylvania Courthouse and Yellow Tavern impede Grant's drive for Richmond. On May 11th, Confederate Cavalry Commander Jeff Stewart is killed at Yellow Tavern. The loss of this charismatic young general is a huge blow to the Confederate morale. On September 2nd, Atlanta falls. A Union victory at Cedar Creek in October ends the Confederate threat in the Shenandoah Valley. With their supply lines stretched and broken, the Confederates increasingly suffer shortages of food, ammunition, and horses. While the North turned to the Midwest and Canada for remounts, shipping horses to the front by the trainload, Confederates had difficulty resupplying themselves with horses. As the war dragged on, the Federals gained strength as the Confederates wasted away. So what was the war like for the horses? For many, at the height of the war, the Union infantry was using up to 500 the lifespan of a horse. It was only 6 weeks. To the first Massachusetts writes home, quote, "You have no idea that you're a slave to your horse. You work like a dog yourself and see diseases creeping on you day by day, and your horse is breaking down under your I got to for my horses and I'm sorry for them, but all war is cruel, and it's my business to bring every man I can into the presence of the enemy, and so make war short. So I have but one rule: a horse must go until it can't be spurred any further, and then the rider must get another horse as soon as he can seize upon one." Unquote. The irony was that the best cavalrymen loved their horses and had to watch them suffer or abandon them by the side of the road, hoping that perhaps a farmer would take them in and nurse them back to health. March 1865. Appomattox campaign begins with Grant's move against Lee's defenses at Petersburg, Virginia. Now, the Yankee cavalry under Sheridan and Custer are everywhere. Fighting mounted and dismounted, they cut supply lines and capture food and ammunition desperately needed by the Confederate Army. April 1865. Petersburg, and then Richmond falls. At Five Forks, the Waterloo of the Confederacy, Custer's Michigan Cavalry Brigade virtually annihilates the remainder of the Confederate cavalry. A few days later at Sailor's Creek and Appomattox, Yankee cavalry helped deliver the coup de grace to Lee's army. On April 9, 1865, Lee chooses to surrender rather than sacrifice more men needlessly. In a generous gesture, General Grant allows Confederate soldiers to keep their horses. While Confederates returned home with few horses they had left, most of the Union soldiers were sold and auctioned to the highest bidder. One of the lucky ones was Old Billy, a black Canadian horse of the 1st Massachusetts. A young corporal, Sam Lovell, was the first to ride him in 1861, finding him very gentle, and though he said for some riders he proved unmanageable. Lovell kept track of the horse as he moved up through the ranks. After the surrender at Appomattox, the now Lieutenant Lovell found him. To his surprise, and Billy was there. He from the Army and took him home to Massachusetts. Billy lived another 16 years, even hearing his master as Grand Marshal in the largest decoration parade ever seen in his town. But for every Billy, 100 short horses died unnamed and unknown. In both North and South, whole bloodlines and breeds of horses were devastated. The South in particular suffered from a lack of horsepower for years to come. In all, perhaps 1.5 million horses and mules perished in the Civil War. Now today, the Northwest Cavalry Association honors these unsung heroes, their courage and endurance. They didn't know why they fought, but they served their master and their country all the same. The Northwest Cavalry Association was formed in the year 2000 to preserve the history and tradition of the American horse soldier. Now, if you're interested in history and horses, we invite you to help us keep this tradition alive. Join the cavalry! Wonderful job, you guys, and sure appreciate that. Great presentation.